Hey friends, it is Wednesday and that means it is Ask a Flower Farmer and I'm here. And if you would like to ask any question related to growing flowers, whether you are, a home gardener, a budding flower farmer, or a seasoned flower farmer, I will do my best to answer your questions. And you just post your questions in the little bubble down below that has the question mark in it. Don't post your questions in the comments because I'm afraid if I have to scroll through the comments that I may miss your questions. And I'm so glad to be with you here today. And I already see folks sharing the sunflower emoji. And friends, that just makes my heart swell because don't know if you're aware of what that means. Folks identify themselves as one of our online course students by posting the sunflower emoji. And we appreciate that so much. We love seeing you here. And it just really means a lot to us. And this is a really special week because, if you're not familiar with our online courses, our big schools about flower farming and flower-based business, it's not just flower farming. Our schools only open for enrollment 5 days out of the year because they're so big and so interactive. And this week, starting tomorrow, actually, June 9th, Dave Dowling's course, Bulbs, Perennials, Woodies, and More, actually opens for regular registration. But I'll tell you a little secret. Today, his registration is open to our VIPs. And the VIPs are those people that are a student of any of our other courses. And those people know that they just have to go look in their inbox to find their very special link to register, and his students are already filing into his course. It's so overwhelmingly amazing, y'all. We are so grateful for all of that. And so I'm here on the farm. If you can't tell, I'm in a little bit different setup than I normally am. And I'm actually standing in the set that minus all the flowers of our new shop and show, which actually happens on Fridays inside of our own phone app, the Gardener's Workshop Live Shop app, phone app. You can get it on on whatever your app store is. Just search Gardener's Workshop Live Shop. And so I'm here on the farm today, and I thought I'd just show you a couple of things that you don't often get to look at, right? So the first thing I want to show you is, our live shop and show is, the highlight of that show is really being able to share with you the live blooms of what's blooming on the farm. And then we talk about the seeds and what's related to growing them and all that kind of stuff. Well, I thought I'd show you a little bit of last week's flowers. See them up above there? We are drying so many flowers, y'all, so that we can have them to show what they look like dried later in the season. But also we just have all kinds of fun stuff getting cooked up. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. And then there are just a few, those are some leftover peach pro-cut sunflowers from last week. But I wanted to show you these too. These are just some of the thousands of seedlings. This is Gumphrena, and it is ready to go to the garden. It actually should have been planted probably earlier this week. It'll get planted next week. And this is some celosia that was just started. Let's see, this is 5/25. What is today? So this is 2 weeks old? I mean, isn't this just awesome, y'all? I'm not holding them quite right. So, and here is the breaking news. These green trays that I'm holding these on, this is 100 of the small blockers in this tray. Literally, as we speak, the truck that has our pallets from Europe are en route to the warehouse. They're here. They're in Virginia, y'all. Believe it or not, it's been a really long journey, 6 weeks waiting for these actual trays. And I'll tell you why I really love them. I love them because they're long and narrow. It allows me to maximize one of these. If this was my rack that's in my grow room, I can get, I think, 7 of these on one rack to make the maximum out of my grow lights. and just totally adore these. You'll find these on the website. And let's just say, we don't restock the store until they're physically in our warehouse. So if it says that they're sold out, sign up for the wait list, because the minute that Kelly updates our inventory, then you'll get an email that says, hey, they're available, and I'm telling you, you better run and get them while you can. So these trays are the bomb. I will tell you that Bobo wasn't like all about it at first, because we use other types of trays. We use several different types of sizes of trays. So now Bobo is hooked on these green trays. She has had, she's got her list up at the warehouse saying, she wants 50 more of these. So anyway, so this is Gump Farina, and this Gump, and I want to just take a moment to show you this. People are always sending me images of like, what's wrong with my seedlings? And 99% of the time, it's that they should have been planted last week. And that's exactly what's happening here with my Gump Farina. See these little spots? Y'all, they're just getting old and tight, and it's just time to plant them. And so often we are just sitting on them for too long. You can see some little spots right here. Stuff just starts happening. And then I'll show you these two, and then I'm going to get to y'all's questions. These are Cosmos. Y'all, we are in full board seed starting here. We are planting the second succession. We're seed starting the third succession. So this is the Cosmos seconds. These will be planted on Monday. Christine will be planting these. We're growing all 14 of the varieties. Cosmos are really, they may not be your favorite flower, but let me tell y'all, if you're selling to the public, it's their favorite flower. So you got to figure it out. And that's what we've done. And so these guys are ready to go. The new apricotta is on the store, and the lemonade. There's just so many beautiful ones, and you just have to figure out how to make them work for you and your customers. So let me get started here. All right, so Marie is asking, favorite type of buckets to take flowers into a florist and where to buy them. So first off, buckets are really in short demand or short supply right now. Anything that's based on fuel is in short supply, and plastic is based on fuel, y'all, whether, it's a petroleum product. So buckets, I've never really, other than specialty display buckets, I have never had to purchase buckets. I've always found people that get their products in it that I am there to help relieve them of getting rid of the buckets. That can be anywhere from supermarkets to bakeries to shops that sell flowers, like floral departments and supermarkets. Sometimes if you kind of like look behind their counters and stuff, they have literally ceiling to floor stacks of buckets. That may not be the case right now because of the short supply. So that would be my beginning. And when you go to bakeries, like the baking department and supermarkets, they get their cake icing in those kinds of buckets. Chick-fil-A gets their pickles in those green buckets. So you have to think outside of the box. And when you get them, they're going to be yucky, especially if you get them from a bakery. If they haven't washed them, they are really a mess, because icing is nothing but lard, y'all. That's the rude thing that kind of comes clear to you. So you need to like really scope those places out. And here's the thing. This is why a lot of businesses, it's just like me. It's just like if you had leftover flowers. You can't make it difficult for the business to give you something. You have to say, if you have any empty buckets available, you tell me when and where, and I'll be there. If it's like every Tuesday morning, I'll pull up to the back of your shop, and if there's buckets out, I'll take them, or tell me how we want to do it. But friends, you have to be reliable and do it then, because it is a pain in their neck to kind of do. It's just easier to trash them, frankly. And so you have to really make it easy and make a connection with somebody there at the shop. I was so fortunate that there was actually a man that was so interested in recycling that he worked at a store that had tons of buckets, and he would bring them to me. And I would come home and there would be like stacks of buckets leaning up against my fence. maybe you might be that lucky, but that's the best place to get buckets. A lot of the places that sell buckets don't even have buckets in stock. So that would be my best bit of advice to you. Hi, Lisa. I'm hoping to attend your flower farm in school this year. My question is about flower conditioning. When the flowers are initially harvested, they go into a bucket with CVB and tabs. Correct. After the rest, do they then transfer to another bucket with a tea bag? So that's a really great question. It depends on where they're going. So we leave them in the tea bags, not the tea bags, sorry, in the CVB tablet that they are harvested into until basically they're sold, which happens in the next 24 hours, right? So if they're going to our florist, we fill the florist's buckets, their Percona buckets. Percona bucket boxes are those plastic buckets that are square that you see. We bring our customers' buckets home, wash them, and then pack them with their flowers, conditioned water, and take them back to them. So they get a tea bag because they're going back to their florist. If they're going home with a retail customer, they're still in the CVB tablet. But when we make the bouquets, we give the end customer a bag of flower food rubber banded to their bouquet, like when for our members only market. And so we don't typically sit on flowers here on our farm for more than 24 to 36 hours. And flowers can sit in the CVB for 72 hours. So they basically stay in that until they find their next step. So I hope that helps. Morning, would you mind going over the treatment you do for cut flowers, the tablets you put in the water to preserve the flowers for florists? So, all right. So there's a lot of conditioning steps here, so I will go over them. Let me grab them. I'm getting them, y'all. This is the joy of being at home. All right, so you guys can find all this stuff over on our website. So let's start at the beginning. So in our harvest buckets, we know that most flowers benefit from the CVBN tablets. This is chlorine, and it's a long-acting chlorine. And we know that most flowers benefit from having this. Not every flower, but it is a logistical nightmare to only put this in some of your buckets for us. So we just put one tablet in 1 gallon of water into each 5-gallon bucket that we're using to harvest with. This kills the bacteria that perhaps is in your bucket if it wasn't cleaned properly, kills the bacteria that naturally grows in water, and it kills the bacteria that happens and occurs when a stem hits the water surface and the stem dumps out a bunch of gook. Like think of daffodils, how they ooze runs out. Well, that really happens in most flowers. We just don't see it. It's not that extreme, right? So that's what this does. This is not flower food. This does not hydrate. This simply is a sanitizer. So this kills bacteria. This prevents bacteria from developing for a couple of more days. Every little step that you do buys a little bit more time. No one step fixes everything. And I get that question all the time. Well, do I have to do this if I do that? They really have nothing to do with each other. Starting with a washed, clean bucket with fresh water with 1 CVBN tablet buys you a couple of days. Then by taking the flowers, so we harvest today, we put these in the morning, we harvest. Then they sit in this water for at least 4 hours to get the full treatment. So that means if you harvest in the morning, that afternoon, you can move them out of that water and they got the benefit from it at that step, right? Then we, depending on where they're going. So flowers that are going to our florist the next morning, which typically is what happens, the orders get packed that afternoon to go to be delivered to the florist the next morning. Those, we have our customers' buckets we gather them this week for next week's, or we just always have a surplus of their buckets. We wash them, clean them, sanitize them, do whatever we have to do to them to get them clean. And then we fill them with the proper amount of water. And then we put in a tea bag. This is a tea bag, called a tea bag because it's just like a Lipton tea bag, y'all. I mean, the product's in there, you just drop this in. It tells right on the tea bag what it is and what it's for. So this not only says to everybody on staff, hey, there is already a tea bag floating in the bucket, somebody's already done it. But for me, more importantly, it says to my customer, hey, look, they're using Chrysol Professional #2 premium tea bags. They really are pros. They know that we are conditioning our flowers. So we take them out of the CVB and tablet water, pack them into the buckets that have these tea bags. The tea bags come in 2 sizes you'll see on the website. This is for a gallon of water. And then there's a half-gallon size. You know the black buckets that supermarket bouquets typically go in? You fit 5 bouquets in a bucket. That gets a half a gallon of water, so there's a half size of this also. Same thing. All of these little steps. This continues. This has a biocide, so it keeps up killing bacteria. It also has a pH balancer, which keeps the stems drinking water, as well as it has food, but it doesn't have a high dose of food because the flowers are still they aren't in the end customer's hand yet, right? Think about that. You don't want the flowers to keep moving right along, meaning the buds opening and developing, until they really get into the customer's hand. Your commercial customer still is sitting on them, whether it's a supermarket or a florist. That's why we use this instead of regular flower food. This has everything that regular flower food has, except it has less nutrition. It does more holding. That's why we call it a holding solution. It keeps them healthy and happy, but it doesn't push them, okay? So we harvest into this. We send to the florist and the supermarket in this. If you have a farm stand or any kind of market that you maintain display buckets, this is what should be in there. The only time we use fresh flower food, which I don't have, where do I have those? Wait a minute, y'all. This is becoming a show and tell, right? Stand by. So when we make our bouquets for our, whether it be our supermarkets or bouquet subscriptions, they all get a packet of the fresh cut flower food. There's 2 types of fresh cut flower food now. Actually, one's called bulb fresh cut flower food, and it's a yellow packet when you see it on the website. But here's the difference. If you're growing flowers from bulbs, dahlias, daffodils, tuberoses, they all benefit from an extra hormone. Y'all, this is all just science stuff, but it makes your flowers last longer. That added hormone helps to keep, and tulips, think about how tulip foliage gets kind of yellowed really quick. That added hormone helps to keep the foliage greener and to keep them developing. We don't really grow much from bulbs, so we use the fresh cut flower food. This is what our end customer gets to go home and put into their vase, and helps continue all the other steps that we have actually done, right? So I hope that kind of like brings it all around for you, but you can find it all over at thegardenersworkshop.com. And I will tell you that homegrown flowers benefit as much, if not more, from conditioning products than retails do because they drink so much water and they're so thirsty and so healthy, it just prolongs their life. So that really works. All right, Lisa, what do you do with all the leftover flowers? I would love for a market bouquet on demand course. I'd love to dive deep on the basics of building a bouquet for a grocery store or farmers markets. Thought that might be a good idea. So Well, we do have uses. You mean for now that we're not selling flowers? We have long lists of ways to have uses for our flowers, but that is part of my flower farming school course, is actually making speed bouquets and supermarket bouquets. So yeah, that's a good thought though. I will plant that seed for Suzanne, but we are actually already have that in flower farming school. But that is a great idea. So this says, I am struggling to germinate Rudbeckia cherry brandy. Any tips? So first off, I will tell you that I'm getting ready to cut my first cherry brandy blooms tomorrow. Our Rudbeckias, oh my gosh, they're so gorgeous, y'all. I can hardly stop taking pictures of them. I only am growing like 6. I think we have 11 on our website. And oh my gosh, they are so beautiful. And the cherry brandy are in there. I will tell you that Rudbeckias, while a lot of people say, oh, they're so easy to start from seed, they aren't as testy as they could be, meaning they will typically germinate whether you put them on the surface or if you push them down into the soil a little bit. But I personally find they do best sown firmly onto the surface, but it's all about temperature. And this is a little late in the year. We will be starting Rudbeckias again, I think next week or the week after, because we're trying to see that cherry brandy and Sahara, if you ask me, are like totally not in demand this time of the year. We want them in late summer. So we're trying to push that envelope. So it's all about temperature. They like cool air, warm soil. And that is really hard to provide at this time of the year, unless, like me, you grow in an air-conditioned space where you can have them on a seedling heat mat to warm the soil, but keep the air temperature about between 68 and 70 degrees, which is a lot cooler than what my grow room is right now. So hopefully that helps. One more, do you cut or burn into biofilm? You do not need to burn biofilm. The Bio 360 is super, stand by. I should have rolled this whole cart of props that I have here for other reasons. It is so super easy to use the Bio 360, y'all. So it comes in a package like this, and it is even easier to pop a hole in. I'm just going to pull it here on the side. Literally, watch how easy this is. Well, if I can get my finger through only one layer of it. I mean, it is literally, it is easier than plastic because of the nature of what it's made from. And literally, we use either a screwdriver or a dandelion weeder or a dibble. And it is super easy to plant in. And I will tell you that, as we're doing, we follow a couple, actually probably like 3 different methods of farming here. I've been a conventional farmer, meaning making beds with a tractor and a bed layer. And we use Bio 360 that way. We make beds by hand and have used Bio 360. And then we've got a no-till area of our farm. And I will tell you that there's a learning curve to no-till. I appreciate so much now we actually lay the Bio 360 on the surface of beds and put a little bit of mulch on top of it, trying to get that same effect of like using newspaper. It works great for that too, because I will tell you the weed suppression of blocking light, and we've got beds out there right now. I was just weeding yesterday where there's no film. Light gets in, and there is so many weeds that just pop up through the mulch. It's just not the same. I am really learning. So what I'm saying is that I love Bio 360. I've used it about almost a decade now. It is super easy to use. You do not need to burn holes in it. And it's got a black side and a gray side. We make beds now this time of the year with the gray side up to cool the surface so you don't cook seedlings. And when it's spring or fall, you do it with the black side up. Love that stuff. And you can find it on our website. And it comes single packages and 6 packs. My crested celosia seed, oh wait a minute, let me look at this. My crested celosia sets seed before they are decent size. Why? Plumes like sylphid are fine, but crested fan barely get an inch wide before they have little green ball seeds. So, this is really a great question. Life more colorful. So she's asking why some celosias set seeds earlier than other celosias. It is 100%, not 100, mostly based on varieties. And the fact that you even reference sylphid, you can actually, one of the qualities of some of these pricier seeds are that they've been hybridized to be slower to go to seed. Sylphid, that's a plume, obviously. Sunday's like that too. But in the crested, in the coxcomb varieties, we're looking at spring green and Neo and Bombay. All of those, part of the gift of those is that you can allow them to grow bigger and bigger, and they are very slow to go to seed, which also contributes to why the seed costs so much, because it's not easy for them to produce seed. Think about that for a minute, right? So that is a really big part of it. That's one of the reasons that I don't grow certain varieties, like Pampas Plume, which is a plume. You'd look the other way and it produces seed. Pampas Plume ruins more growers from growing celosias because it does get so seedy so quick. And there are also some crested varieties that can be quicker than others. I find personally the Kramer's variety is pretty quick to go to seed, especially the green. That's why I grow spring green. It costs 10 times as much, but guess what? I actually get stems that I can sell. So I'd be really interested to know if you're growing, what variety of coxcomb you're growing that you feel like is going to seed. So this is there any advantage to letting the dew dry off your flowers before harvesting? For sure. You should not really harvest most flowers wet. Some flowers, it doesn't seem to really make a big difference. One that jumps in is Sweet William. Could care less if it's got some dews. It does not blemish the actual flowers. But if you harvest moist flowers and put them in a bucket and they kind of stay moist, that is the breeding ground for botrytis, which is what just takes flowers out really quickly. So most flower farmers if you live in a place where you have heavy dew, they kind of figure out which flowers really don't have a problem. Sunflowers don't seem to have a problem being dewy when you cut them. What flowers can be cut wet? So you can cut those first. You would never cut wet like rain flowers. Well, you do your best to not. Sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. But it does affect vase life for sure. So twig and petals, are there any flowers that you don't store in the cooler after harvesting? Oh, sure. We, in fact, but here's the thing you have to hear before I answer my question. Y'all, we don't sit on flowers. Our flowers move out in 24 to 36 hours. And I don't grow a lot of bulbs. We're not talking about tulips and lilies and peonies, all of those crops that almost you must have a cooler. I don't know if y'all just listened to my latest podcast with Nicole Hill of Flower Hill Farm in New York. She and I were talking about how she grew tulips without having a cooler and how horrible it was. So I do have a big walk-in cooler. But because when we hit the summer flowers, with this time of the year when we're starting into celosias and zinnias and azuratums and even lisianthus, those are flowers that we move in less than 36 hours, and they really don't benefit from being in the cool. We don't have to hold flowers. That's what coolers are really beneficial for. If you're a farmer florist, if you're holding for an event, or you're selling a lot of those flowers that do need a cooler, you can't not have a cooler and have it on. But typically we don't put summer flowers in the cooler. I, in fact, usually turn my cooler off in June and don't turn it back on till fall when maybe dahlia season was starting. But coxcombs, none of them, we just didn't have to put them in the cooler. Now, cool flowers in the spring definitely benefit from the cool, and hydrangeas definitely would go in the cooler. But most everything else we grow, it just doesn't benefit to pop into the cooler for a 12-hour period while they just sit here overnight before they go to their customer. And learning that is really, really important for the flowers that you're growing. The post-harvest book that's put out by the ASCFG, it's like $80 for the book. Pay it and get it, y'all. It'll save you $80 the first time you read it, because it tells you all that stuff, what temperatures and all those kinds of things. Celosia update. I have the Kramer's lime for sure and some of the floret mixes with fan types. I'll definitely look into the more single stem varieties. So Kramer's lime definitely gets dirty. I don't know what varieties are at the base of Aaron's mixes, what specific ones. But what I have found, those varieties, the varieties like the Bombay, the Neo, the Act, Spring Green is my number one green. And I will tell you that right now we're doing all kinds of tests out in the field. Spring Green is smoking the other two greens that I'm growing right now. Spring Green is one of the most expensive seeds that we buy, but it's worth every penny because they'll grow big. They barely get seed on them. I don't know how they save seed, frankly. And it's worth it. If you have, I wouldn't be putting it in farmers markets bouquets, but if you're selling to commercial customers, they will pay for it because it is gorgeous and it's clean. It's really, really beautiful. So definitely look into that. So seed price will definitely guide you on that. What 3 flowers would you recommend for a beginner? Totally depends on what season you're talking about. And I would actually say 5 probably if you're just trying to figure out what you're doing. Sunflower, zinnias, coxcomb, lemon basil, and probably a plume, celosia plume. All of those are seed that you can, I will tell you, and then we got to get off here. It's past 12 o'clock. That learning how to farm, you should definitely do on annuals. That's kind of what my whole course is all about. Flower Farming School Online, the basics, annuals, marketing, and more, right? Because learning how to farm is, and when I'm talking about finding customers, learning how to sell, how to harvest, when to bunch, what you should be growing, how the whole world of farming, right? And you want to do that on low investment crops because you're going to screw it up a lot. You're not going to sell everything in the beginning. You're going to be dumping a lot of crop potentially into the compost heap. You don't want to be doing that with higher investment crops. So those I literally started growing with these annuals that I teach about in my course. Then I did go in. I grew lilies for several years and tulips and lots of other crops. But guess what, friends? I learned that I circled back and I still grow today. That's what built my farm, was growing those staple annuals that I can sell every single week in all the different markets that I sold in that are low investment, high return. There's nothing wrong with the high investment crops. That's what Dave Dowling's course is all about. He will save you so much money in buying the wrong things and how to grow it. His course, bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more. And he also kind of introduces you into hoop and greenhouse growing and teaches you, no, you don't put tulips in the ground, y'all. You grow them in crates, and oh my gosh, and lilies and which ones you should grow. And do you bother keeping the bulbs from year to year? And if you do, how do you store them? So in the beginner world, those would be my starters. And I want to say again, so at 1 o'clock today, over on Clubhouse, I'm doing my weekly chit chat, and guess who my partner is today, along with Jesse, is Dave Dowling. And we're going to be kind of talking about what are bulbs, perennials, and woodies. What do they do for you? And friends, if you want to scale your business, sell more, have more diversity, get more into florist, foliages. That's what we'll be taught. Well, that's what his course is all about, and we'll be talking about that today. And if you haven't already signed up for my weekly newsletter, you need to do that because it'll keep you in tune. Like tomorrow night, Dave and I are talking. There's a lot of great live talks coming up over this next 5 days of his course enrollment being open, which it opens tomorrow morning to the public, which if you aren't already a member of the TGW family means you aren't one of our students. You can register starting, I think, at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Our VIP students have already started filing in. Those are students that are people that are already students that get a special email and deal. And so we're just super excited. And friends, we are all about helping. If you want to become a flower farmer, we're here to walk with you through that. And we'll be talking all about that and the course. I mean, y'all, it's 6 weeks long. You keep it for life. You basically are in a private group for the rest of your days after school is over with the alumni and Dave to get your answers to questions that you may have. And I just appreciate all y'all showing your support. And if you happen to be one of Dave's students, if you post on here, hey, I'm one of Dave's students, reach out to me. We would love that. The word of mouth, hearing from another student. That's why I talked to Nicole Pitt of Flower Hill Farm. I'm sorry, I always get it confused. Y'all all know her. She is so big over on YouTube. She took both mine and Dave's course, and she's talking about that in the Field and Garden podcast that just went live this morning. I'll be talking to more of his students through the weekend. Friends, to see is, and see, there you go. Fields of Grace Flower Farm. Thank you. Folks, just reaching out. Not only do you just learn a lot, it's easy to go back, and that's what Nicole is talking about. And it's easy to go back and look up what you're planting 2 years from now to see what Dave says you should do, or when you're ordering. And so registration opens June 9th through the 13th. It's 5 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And the class is $600. There is a payment plan if you need it. Friends, he will save you so much more money than $600, whether you are an avid gardener, a budding flower farmer, or a seasoned. That's it, folks. I am wrapping it up because I have another talk to go give. And thank you so much for all. Dry Dock Flower Farm says you can reach out to her. And we have others on here. Emerald Flower Farm says that Dave's study is fabulous. Fields of Grace Flower Farm says that she learned so much. And y'all, it just goes on. And you can just go to the course page at thegardenersworkshop.com. Go to the online courses, go to Dave's, and there's reviews there from his students. And we don't want you to miss it, because here's what I'm going to close with. The thought I want to leave you with: if you are not going to do something different starting now, how different is your business going to be at this time next year? Taking Dave's course, whether you think you have time to take it, and we're going to be talking about all that kind of stuff, whether you think you have time or if it's the right time for you, or if you have time in your day, we'll make it work. You can make it work. Trust me. All right, friends. Till I meet you again, see you at 1 o'clock over on Clubhouse. Download the phone app, join Clubhouse, look for my club, Flower Farming, and Dave and Jesse and I will be chit-chatting at 1 o'clock Eastern time today. Ciao.